I want to bring in Republican Congressman Devin Nunes of California right now. He's the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining me. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that's some great footage you have of the interview with General McMaster.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Let's talk about him. General McMaster, it seems that he will be likely to advise President Trump to take a tougher stance on Russia than I suspect General Flynn would have. Is that fair, do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot of innuendo about General Flynn out there. General Flynn is a Russia hawk. I think the big decision that the Trump administration will have to make is whether do they see China as the bigger problem or Russia as the bigger problem, because I think people see it as you can't fight both of them at the same time, and you can't be against both of them at the same time. Now, you know, I've had my reservations about dealing with Putin and the Russians. I think he's totally dishonest actor. But I think that McMaster, at the end of the day, is going to give very sound advice, and he'll be a strong voice of reason, and he's an intellectual heavyweight in the White House that I think anyone having him around is going to be very thankful for.
You said that you don't think General Flynn's phone call with the Russian ambassador was cause for dismissal. Yesterday, Vice President Pence in Brussels said that he was disappointed when he learned that General Flynn had given him inaccurate information about the call, and he said it was the proper decision for President Trump to ask General Flynn to resign. Do you disagree with the Vice President?
Well, look, it's not my place to do that, Jake. I mean, this is the President's decision. Clearly, the Vice President, you know, he stated very clearly that he supports the President's decision. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm not President of the United States, so but I don't believe for a second that General Flynn, talking to the Russian ambassador, broke any laws. And in fact, it's exactly what he should have been doing. And I think the record in the long run will show that he was trying to improve relations between our two countries.
I want to ask you about this story that CNN reported and also the New York Times reported, because there's a discrepancy here between what you and other members of Congress say and what we're being told. Multiple current and former intelligence, law enforcement, and administration officials tell CNN and other outlets that high-level advisors close to then-presidential nominee Donald Trump were in constant communication during the campaign with Russians known to U.S. intelligence. But you say that's not what you're being told. Help explain this discrepancy to us. Well,
first, Jake, if I may, I believe the first time that I went out and sounded the alarm about the problems that we're having with Russia and it being the biggest intelligence failure since 9/11.
Months ago, yeah.
Our failure to, well, not only that, but it was on your show. I think it was on your show last spring. I was begging anyone to pay attention. And at that time, the Obama administration ignored it. The IC, under the direction of the Obama administration, largely ignored it. Why? Because they were in the middle of doing an Iranian deal. They wanted to try to get the Russians to side with them in Syria to try to get Assad out of power. And so, you know, I was asking anyone to come forward with information that would help us to begin to understand this Russia threat. And many members of the House Intelligence Committee have spent a lot of time over in Eastern Europe and looking at the Russia threat, including at the time now Director Pompeo, who is very familiar with the Russia threat. So with all that said, what I'm most interested in are facts. So I just can't go on a witch hunt against American citizens just because they appear in a New York Times story. I've asked the appropriate authorities, you know, anytime one of these stories pops up in the news, we try to get it to the intelligence agencies and say, well, do you have anything on this? And, you know, until somebody can show me, you know, who were they contacting? What phone numbers were they calling? I'd love to have it, because I've been a lone voice in the wilderness here since almost a year ago, being on your show, calling for somebody to do something about the Russia problem.
One last question for you, sir. Today, the Department of Homeland Security released some guidelines for the president's upcoming executive orders on immigration. They suggest that the Trump administration clearly wants to take a much more aggressive approach when it comes to detaining and deporting many more undocumented immigrants, with a focus, of course, on those who have committed other crimes since coming to the U.S. You live in California. You have a plurality Hispanic district. You're a founding member of the Congressional Hispanic Conference. Do you have any concerns? Are you hearing of any concerns about these plans?
Well, I do have a lot of concerns about this. Most importantly, is that, can DHS effectively implement a plan and follow through on it that only goes after those people who are here illegally that have committed crimes? If they can, I'm all for it. And I can tell you that we're kind of at a standstill in this country with immigration reform. And I do believe that we need to have a strong security at the border. And I do believe that we need to kick all these bad guys out, and gang members and drug dealers and everything else, because they are plaguing many communities here in California. The tightrope that the administration will have to walk will be, what do they do with the people that are here? What do they do with young people, someone who was 2 years old when they were brought to this country? And that's going to be difficult. Now, today I noticed that they did make some announcement on DACA that they weren't going to go after children, which I think is important, and they weren't going to do mass roundups, which I think is important. So, look, I'm all for going out and executing the plan to get rid of bad people, and I want them out. The challenge for them will be, can they actually do it?
Chairman Devin Nunes, always a pleasure to have you on, sir. Thank you so much.